I know. I'm well aware. I have to go and watch it with my. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Londonderry Town Council meeting for December 6th, 2021. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As is our tradition, ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for a moment of silence. Tonight, let's go back to our first responders who go into this holiday season and into this continued working through the pandemic. Thank you. All right, folks, we start off every meeting with public comment. If you'd like to address the council this evening, please come on up, name and address for our records. If there's anything under public comment. Yes?
My name is Bill Hamilton. I live at 3 Carrier Street.
Thank you, sir.
I'm coming today to I've spent some time with the tax assessor today, wondering why my tax bill went up 25%. That seems extreme. And so I just figured I would come here and express that, and then also sit and listen to what's going to be said about budget, and see what we can do about trying to make it so that people don't get that kind of an increase.
Okay.
I'm not the only one in town. From what I have talked to other people that's seen that increase.
Okay.
I think that's unreasonable.
Are you planning on going and visiting the school board?
Yes,
Well, they're 73% of your taxes. So
I'll take 26% or 27% tonight,
Well, tonight's 22.8.
whatever.
But happy to have you participate, happy to listen to what you have to say. We operate as literally as 3 separate forms of government. So the school department is one form of government. They operate completely separately from the town. The town has the library. The library is another separate form of government, and their budget is within our budget. And then the town operates as one form of government. So what you'll see tonight is just the town and the library.
That's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Yes?
Ray Breslin, 3 Gary Drive. I'd like to address this ordinance 2021-03 relative to creating Londonderry Commercial Industrial Property Tax Incentive, which apparently would be for the benefit of the Woodmont Common.
Excuse me, sir, we'll be having a public hearing on that tonight. Would you like
What-
to speak during the public hearing? This is public comment.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm going to open public comment here in a minute.
Okay, well, I
Excuse me,
didn't
I'm
want to
gonna- I
miss
have
this
pub-
because I thought you were just having public comment
So
first
every-
thing.
All right, so the way we do it is every night every night of the council meeting, we have public comment. And then if we have public hearings on the agenda, we have 2 public hearings tonight. One is, actually 3, excuse me. There's the one about the ordinance, there's the one about unanticipated revenue, and then we're also going to have a public hearing about the fiscal '23 budget. So it'll be 3 separate public hearings tonight.
Right.
So if you would like to wait for the public hearing, I'm happy to hear your comments about the ordinance.
Okay, so what's the purpose of this period here?
This is, if someone has something they would like to come up and address with the council, that it's not on the agenda or is out, like this gentleman just came up and said, I'm here to talk about my taxes.
Right, okay.
Someone else may come up and say, I'm not happy with a traffic light on Mammoth Road.
Okay.
But
Okay,
right now,
well-
we have the ordinance scheduled for this evening.
Okay, all right, so we'll keep it to the taxes then, because that's affecting everyone, including this gentleman that just spoke, okay? And the taxes basically have gone up to everybody residentially. Unfortunately, commercially, for some reason, apparently their value has not increased, so we haven't done a revaluation of commercial property. I'm not sure I understand that, but, so here we are, and then I guess we'll have to keep my comments as far as this ordinance here till later on, but the point is, we're giving tax benefits to business supposedly so our taxes will go down. We haven't seen that. We saw what happened up at the airport. Well, a lot of businesses, which is a good thing, okay? But as far as our taxes going down, we haven't seen that. So we really need to kind of look at how we're making decisions that is going to affect the taxes for the residents in the town of Londonderry. Thank you.
So for clarification purposes, we did a town-wide revaluation.
We did. All property, commercial, industrial, and residential were all reassessed. And all went up proportionately to the market sales.
Right. So those of you who do live in town, you do know that the real estate market for the residential end of the business has increased dramatically over the last 2 years. That's all market-driven. Well, the tax laws with regards to commercial and residential are complicated in New Hampshire. As driven by the Department of Revenue, what happens is we have to stay at a certain valuation of percentage, and that's between 90 and 110% of the total value of the town. If we drop below 90%, that leaves us open to abatements that have affected us in the past when we were only doing revaluations every 5 years, in which we would have commercial, it would actually favor the commercial properties. We've now changed that policy so that we're now doing annual and biannual revaluations. One, to keep it in, we're trying to keep it in the 90s versus having to go all the way up to 110%, and also to be able to control when the market fluctuates. As people have asked, if the prices of houses go down, are we going to reassess? The answer is yes, because we're going to look at it annually and biannually and keep looking at it until we get it right. Any questions?
And I would just add, Mr. Chair, too, that I don't want people to be under any illusions when it comes to budgeting and assessments are really two separate things. In other words, let's say the town and school budgets had stayed entirely flat last year, year over year, but your assessment went up 25%. Chances are you were going to see a tax increase regardless of what the budgets did, because that increase is higher than what the tax rate decreased by. Similarly, there are residents in town who saw a tax decrease this year because their assessment went up at a lower percentage than what the tax rate actually went down by.
So if you look at your tax bill when it comes out, and nobody's happy about taxes going up, I'm not happy my taxes went up. But when you look at the taxes when they come out is that they're broken out by percentages. So tonight, the town will present a budget that is about 0.5% over last year's budget. What's in that is all the collective bargaining agreements and pieces like that. The school has presented a budget that is about 2% over, or about $1.8 million over, and they're still going to have the teacher's contract come to the ballot, which is probably worth another $2 to $3 million. So we had a conversation when we were out and we present in town to a number of the communities, and we asked people, how many people are registered to vote? We have almost 20,000 people here in Londonderry registered to vote. We asked people how many people vote, and they all raised their hand that they vote. I said, do you vote in March? And they look at you and they go, what happens in March? Well, only 3,000 people vote in March of those 20,000 people. So 3,000 people come out and make the decisions on what is the thing that affects you the most here in town. So what we encourage people to do is, let's come out and vote in March, because that's when your money's getting spent. So, anything else on taxes? No. Okay. So we're going to close. Anybody else for public comment? Okay, so we're going to close public comment and move to a public hearing. May I have a motion to open a public hearing?
So moved, Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Public hearing is open. Public hearing, ordinance 2021-03. the ordinance relative to creating a Londonderry Commercial and Industrial Property Tax Incentive Program. It's presented by Kevin Smith and Mike Malaguti tonight. Now, folks, understand, this is a public hearing and it's a discussion. We're trying to figure out if this is a good or a bad idea. The staff is going to make their recommendation on why they think this is a good idea. It's not that we may not vote on it tonight. We may continue this. We're going to ask questions. We may change it. But that's the purpose of the public hearing. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the purpose of bringing this ordinance before you, RSA, that would be adopting RSA 7281, is to take advantage of an economic development tool that the state has put in place for municipalities to take advantage of to accelerate commercial and industrial development in the town. Kind of speaks to some of the themes that we've been hearing here this evening, and that one of the areas where Londonderry has excelled is in the development of its commercial and industrial base, which has actually kept municipal taxes very low. I can't speak to the educational tax or the county tax. I can speak to the municipal tax, though. And the reality is that the economic development tools that we used up at Pettingill Road, between the TIF district, the development agreements we did there, all considerably helped in accelerating development up in that area. This tool is no different. This is a property tax incentive program specifically designed for commercial and industrial development on all new construction. And it's to accelerate development in the Woodmont sub-areas, WC1 and WC2, where we expect most of the commercial development to come from. The reason why we chose those areas as well is because those are more small-scale commercial development, if you will. They did ask if it could be also used on the east side by 4A, which I suggested was not a good idea. I did not think that was a good idea for the town, nor did I think it was a good idea for this program to be used town-wide. The reason for that is that I don't believe if we have a large developer like Pratt Whitney or like FW Webb that has come in to be able to take advantage of this program, because those are very large industrial users in which the town is poised to receive, poised to reap a large tax benefit from almost immediately. What we'd be talking more about here is, for instance, a hotel user or a medical user, smaller scale, but with the cost of construction the way it is right now, and the other areas of competition in southern New Hampshire, particularly in Salem, in Portsmouth, it's a very competitive market right now. And so this would be a tax incentive for commercial areas that are not yet built. So we are currently receiving no tax revenue from the development here that would receive this property tax benefit. And it's not an entire exemption. It's up to 50%, and that's only in the first year, and then it gets tiered down over 5 years or 10 years, the way the ordinance is written. And so I bring this to you before the evening for consideration, again, as an economic development tool to grow the town's commercial tax base, to keep taxes relatively stable, low, or even lower them. We have lowered the municipal rate 4 out of 8 years, and 3 of those years were in non-reval years. So we have done that on the municipal side. Mike, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that?
Yes, thank you. The only thing I would add to that is that it isn't everybody who is in one of these areas that qualifies. The council has to find that there's a public benefit, and a public benefit is defined as follows. Something that enhances the economic vitality of the town, that promotes the development of municipal centers, providing for efficiency, safety, and a greater sense of community, an increase in the commercial and industrial activity in town, including job creation, and an increase in the town's commercial or industrial tax base. And that's really within the council's discretion on a case-by-case basis as these applications come in. And that's really all I would add.
Questions from the council?
Question. What's the dollar amount that triggers this, Kevin?
Sure. So it all depends on the level of investment that the developer is making. So if you look on page 3 in your agenda, of the ordinance. You'll see under section 7.5 for tier 1 project, that would be an investment of at least, I believe, is it $5 million, Mike?
Yeah, and 7.2, Kevin.
Oh, my apologies. Okay, so 7.2 lays it out. So it'd be $5 million for a top tier, $2.5 million for a tier 2 project, and $1 million for tier 3. And then you'll see 7.5 lays out how the tax incentive would work over that time frame. So for a tier 1 project, it's over 10 years, starting with 50% in year 1, and then it gets narrowed down to when it gets to 5% in year 10. For a tier 2 project, it's only 5 years, starts at 30%, and then goes to 20, 10, and 5. And for a tier 3 project, it's 4 tax years, beginning with year 2, starting with 30%, and then year 2 would be 20%, 3 is 15, and year 4 is 10%.
Yeah, please.
Do we have any programs now, incentive programs now, for either Woodmont or up at the airport?
We have nothing at the airport right now, but we have employed TIF districts in the airport at the past. For Woodmont, the only other incentive program we have specifically for Woodmont is we do have a TIF district on the east side where 4A is going to be going in, which is more in line with what we did up at Pentonville Road.
Now, with regards to trying to evaluate this, you had mentioned Salem. Are there any other towns that have these type of incentive programs that basically are our competition when we're trying to increase revenue?
Yeah, sure. So the one I know of most close to us is Derry.
Okay,
Derry does have this program. Theirs is townwide, and they have a 10-year tax exemption program for all projects there.
and has there been much activity with that program?
I don't think it's been utilized to the extent that they thought it would be utilized,
Okay.
interestingly enough. And I don't know if that's a result of them not promoting it a lot, or if there just aren't enough qualifying projects that have utilized it.
Thank you.
Yes, John.
So I just want to make sure, I'm under the impression that this is not a permanent situation, that it's actually times out. I think it's 5 years, and then also if the council needs to take action, if they don't like the direction it's going, the council can create another hearing and stop it from continuing, right?
That's exactly right. It is 10 years or 5 years based on the size of the investment. And there's actually a covenant that gets recorded against the property in the Registry of Deeds. So that, for instance, if the council were to decide that there's a specific public benefit, maybe a cultural center, and the user decides that they want to, like, I don't know, open up a strip club or something, then the council could take that back up.
Thanks for taking that extra.
That was not the intent of the program. I just want to point that out.
Oh, Lord.
We actually have ordinances about that, you know, but thanks for the extreme example. Anyone else? Yes.
Yes. So I have a lot of questions, but I feel like I have to ask to invoke my town councilor privileges due to the posting of this public hearing. And as I had spoke with Kevin, I just feel, you know, not that there's a lot of people here to talk about it, but I think maybe more people would have attended, and we should be consistent where we put our public notices. I had offered before, and I will offer again, if you so choose not to use the Derry News, they would all run free in my paper, which would be consistent for the people to do that, because I just feel that it's a disservice if they don't know that it's not in here, you gotta look there. And so that is why I'd like to invoke my town councilor privilege on this, just pushing it out, allowing people an extra meeting to come and speak towards this. So I'm not sure exactly if we can continue talking, blah, or do we?
Perhaps I could suggest to you a procedural way to go about it.
That would be awesome, thank you.
A procedural way to go about it would be probably to ask the question or part one is if you want the staff to address the question with regards to posting. And since people did come, you may want to consider letting the public hearing continue tonight and invoke your counsel or privilege for a continuance.
Oh, okay.
If you want to go about it that way we can continue, and you could still do that, or the council may vote to continue it anyway.
But you may not, so you
But
might.
if we don't go down that path, you can invoke your privilege.
Okay,
You can only do it for one meeting,
that's fine.
and it can continue for one meeting.
That's all I wanted was one extra meeting for some people who may have not. known
Since you
about
brought it up, I don't really think anyone's going to try to vote to not continue it.
Okay,
I think
so we can
everyone
still
should-
ask questions then.
Absolutely.
Okay.
People came down here, we should continue.
Okay,
But
so.
you can do what I said.
Okay, so now I have a lots of questions. I'm sorry. Still learning. I did call Salem today, and Salem does not use, I talked to, I think his name was, where the heck was it, Ross?
Yep.
Ross,
Smallville.
and he said they don't have to do anything to get businesses to come to their town, mainly because of their close proximity to Massachusetts. So I did look into that, and I have a question in regards to 10 years. Does it have to be 10 years? Does Derry do it that way with 10 years?
Derry does do 10 years. We kind of split the baby here and did 5 years for the projects where there's less of a investment, and for the ones that are what we would consider to be the larger investments, $5 million or more, we did the 10-year. Does it have to be 10 years? No. You could make that one 5 too if.
I was just trying to think that way, maybe just, one thing that's maybe not as much of a tax relief as we're giving these businesses right now, because then the extra burden does fall on to the other taxpayers to fill in that void.
And Counselor, just one point of clarification on what Derry does. They have a very open-ended ordinance that sort of allows the council to specify the period of tax relief as well as the amount of tax relief. Frankly, that made us uncomfortable because it really was just this boundless inquiry that the council.
No, I agree.
And so we felt that it was important to one, for predictability purposes, so that people who were looking at Londonderry sort of knew what they might be eligible for, and it wasn't just whatever the council thought was appropriate at a given time. So that's why we went with this structure for this
Okay.
program.
Thank you, Mike. The other thing is like, we talk about 5 million, and I'll just talk about the school addition over here, right? They're saying around 3 million, and they already have the land and the engineering design. So you're talking very, very small projects, but it says up to. Are we gonna cap it? Because, think about that dollar amount. 5 million is really a small amount of money. It's a small project. A really small project. If you can think about that being 3 million, and they didn't have to buy the land or
Well,
do engineering.
It says 5 million or more.
Yeah, should we talk about how much more? Should that be stated in there? Is like, can somebody
Well-
come in and say, I want to spend $20 million?
Yeah, the council, to answer the question, I think the council certainly could place an upper limit on it, or say that, you get the exemption up, but over 5 million, but, under a certain amount.
Could be you get the exemption up to 5 million, and anything beyond 5 million, you pay.
The council could do that, yes.
So that was one of my concerns, because what if it was a bigger project and then the tax implementation, whatever, it would be really bad. So that was another one of my concerns. Again, like I said, I would like to see if we could try to make it a little simpler and shorter, like really 5 years, maybe starting at 35 or 25, and then the last 2 years would be, much lesser, like just 2 things or something like that. And I guess I struggle with how this works. Does the decision go to the whole council when the thing comes in, like when a company comes in and say they want to do this? Does it get done publicly to the whole council, or is it the chair that then disseminates it, or?
The chair doesn't have the authority.
I don't know, I'm just asking, it's not in
all-
here how this is gonna work, so,
Well, when it says it comes to the town council, it comes to the 5 people who are on the council.
okay, is it gonna come publicly, though?
It has to.
Has to.
Okay.
91A says you can't do business outside of a meeting. with
Okay,
limited
well, only
exceptions.
because it was funds for private business, and I was thinking in the lines of real estate, and sometimes that's a little bit, you have to
Nope,
be,
everything has to come in public.
okay.
The other thing the council can do is place, I think, reasonable restrictions or conditions. So I think everything is open for discussion back before the council, before the final decision is made.
Yeah, because I struggle with what is the difference between one bit, like you were saying, what is a good business and what isn't? And our hospitals, I heard Kevin, I think, say hospitals or hotels. Now, hotels I know pay taxes, but hospitals, are most of those nonprofits, so therefore they don't pay taxes?
I think it certainly depends on their structure, and it's a case-by-case basis. I would expect most hospitals to pay taxes, would be my
Okay.
expectation.
I just wanted to make sure that it wouldn't apply to
They would have to be, correct me if I'm wrong here, Lisa may know, they'd either have to be a teaching hospital or a teaching hospital for nonprofit, because as we look at it today, things like the Elliott and CMC and Parkland are all owned by conglomerates.
It depends what kind of hospital it is,
If
but
it's
I
a
mean,
university hospital, we may have to, there may be some stipulations there.
well, I just want to make sure we cover ourselves on,
well, but if it's a nonprofit and they're not paying taxes, then obviously this
they
wouldn't apply.
can't apply for
Right.
any of this, okay.
Right. It's a tax exemption, it's not a tax credit. So therefore, if you don't pay taxes, you wouldn't be getting money back.
Okay.
So on $5 million, what are we talking about here in taxes?
Ni-
100 grand?
92,000,
All right, so it'd be 50% of 92,000.
Yeah,
the
on
first
5
year,
million.
And then it goes down.
correct.
Okay. We're not proposing any relief on infrastructure, right?
No, it's purely just a property tax exemption.
Okay.
One more
Yeah, I'm
thing.
sorry.
I just remembered when you said infrastructure, one of the things that guy Ross in Salem said to me, the big thing that they use to the businesses down there is infrastructure, that the town does most of the infrastructure on the main roads to accommodate the businesses as opposed to giving them tax breaks. Their thing is, we do most of the infrastructure. But Salem is a little bit luckier than us. They have a lot of it already there, but they upgrade it and do it that way.
Well, and that's where the TIF districts have been helpful toward that, is
Yeah.
because we've used the TIF districts to reimburse infrastructure costs, mainly roadway and sewer.
Yeah, no, I get it. All right, thank you.
All right. Anyone else from the council, budget committee? You guys are up here with us?
Quick question.
Yes.
Just in general, as Council Paul mentioned, regarding the 7.2 section of 5 million, I fully agree there should be a cap on that. And I'm wondering, what if a company comes in and they want to develop in phases? Let's say phase 1 is 5 million, next phase is another 10 million. How do we address that?
The way the statute works and the way the ordinance works is value on improvements. And so I think you would address it in stages. So they would be in before the council to apply for phase 1, same thing for phase 2.
And is there a certain time frame that have to have that developed? Phase 2?
not-
It's just something, I mean, I'm just putting it out there so you guys think about that.
Yeah, so there's no time frame in the ordinance. What
Yeah.
I can tell you is what the ordinance provides and what the law requires is that there's no tax exemption available if construction has started, and that you have to come in and make an application by the end of the year before the tax year for which you're seeking the exemption. Those are the only parameters that the statute or the ordinance place in terms of timeframes.
Or it can be, if not.
Yeah.
You can say no to phasing.
Yeah.
And this is not cast in stone.
Correct, yeah. And how do other business, like existing businesses, feel about this, where you're saying new construction only, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, is that what I heard?
Well, no, it actually would allow, in those areas, so, which are identified in the ordinance, if there were a building that needed to be rehabbed,
Yes, okay.
this would be
Oh,
available
great,
for that
okay.
program.
Great, thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone that would like to have comment on this ordinance only.
If I could, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Take home, 6 Bancroft
Great,
Road.
Ted.
Ted, just give us 1 second, he's just got one more question.
Just one clarification.
One quick second, sorry about
With
that.
the rehab and a phased project, usually phased projects, it's a new modular. It's not rehabbing a building. So are we talking about rehab, or are we talking a new extension or a new phase? It's a big difference.
So both new construction and rehab of existing facilities would qualify. If you look at this, the area where this is being proposed, the only building I can think of that would qualify under this would be that brick packing house. If it were being rehabbed into a commercial use. If it was being rehabbed into a residential use, it would not qualify.
So residential, multifamily are out.
Completely out.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on your question, Counselor Butler.
Yes.
It's built, rebuilt, modernized, or enlarged is the language of the ordinance.
Okay, Ted, sorry.
Take home, 6 Bancroft Road. I guess I'll start with Jim's comment. I guess, for example, if we keep with this in the future, look at the mills in Manchester, where they were completely refabbed and reused over time and brought in new employees, new revenue to the city, completely revitalized the city. So, it's in their terminology of refabbing, I think is a good way of looking at this. If there was, a mill building there at the time building and they changed it, the use, or brought in more employees, I think that would be a good use for that. But I'm also here to throw my support behind this as this is a good use to bring in new business to town. One of my comments would be would we look at their balance sheet of what they're spending, or would it be the assessed value by the assessor?
The latter, the assessed value of the
The assessed
improvements.
value.
Yes.
We're not looking at their balance sheet of what they're spending.
Correct.
Okay, so that then leads me to my next question of, if you're trying to get a hotel in here, they're spending way more than $5 million to build a hotel. So, it's pretty costly to build a hotel. And then the assessed value. So would we be looking at, 50% of, say, $50 million on the assessed value? Or are we looking at only going to do $5 million? I mean, it all depends on how we want to look at this.
The way the ordinance is currently written is it would be 50% of whatever, assuming the hotel is assessed at more than 5 million, which I would expect it to be. It would be 50% of whatever that assessed value is,
Right.
as it's currently written.
So I guess my comment to lead off of that is, really any construction these days is not cheap. And to have a building that's $1 million or 2.5 million, that's a pretty small building. And it would not create a lot of economic viability for the town, for employees, or generation. So I almost think that these valuations need to be bumped up to really hit your numbers of your qualifications for economic viability. And I'll leave that to the council to discuss further.
Thank you. So folks, this is a public hearing, so if there's anyone else who would like to address the council, you can just come on up. Yes, I'm sorry. I got one. All right, well, I'll let him, and then I'll come back to you. Is that okay? Sorry, I didn't see you. That's fine.
Ray Burrison, 3 Gary Drive. In regards to this, I would wonder, what is the benefit to the citizens of Londonderry, first off? Now, it's fine to say we're going to bring in more business. That way, it's going to provide jobs, it's going to provide more business in the area, which is, in theory, a good idea. But it seems about, when we're talking about redeveloping, and we have to a certain degree, I think part of this, the idea was, when, like Ted said about Manchester, revitalizing mill buildings is a great idea. And that was a great idea for Manchester and a lot of other cities that have done that. But this over here which we're talking about Woodmont, I don't see where there's much to revitalize, except maybe that a building that's not completed, that more business could go in there, like on the bottom floor. So I think we really need to consider this as, number one, is it going to be a good benefit to the citizens of Londonderry and the taxpayers? Because the more business you bring in also requires support, fire, police, water, sewerage, and so forth. Now, where that comes from, hopefully we can get some grant money and federal money to cover some of that. But we really need to think about our infrastructure, our water and sewer, and we need to get up to speed on that before, and by the way, Woodmont, I think that started in 2013, perhaps? Yes. And here we are at 2021, almost 22. Some business has come in. I don't think it's really our responsibility to support them as far as bringing in business. Down in Salem, they've got, as usual, way far ahead of us as far as that development down there. That's what happened to us a number of years ago, going back to the late 80s and so forth, when we had the development with Boston North that went south because Salem got ahead of us. So let's get back to, is this a benefit to the citizens and taxpayers of Londonderry? It's nice to support big business and help them bring in more business, but that's their responsibility. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the audience under public comment? I have Tim over here.
I have a question regarding it. How big of buildings realistically are we talking about? Because you think about, we got a mall in Manchester, a mall in Salem, a mall in Nashua. I mean, we're really looking like a mall is going to be installed like somewhere over here. How tall of a building can they actually make? What's the planning board limitations? I'm not on the
50
planning board,
feet.
so-
For height is 50 feet.
Right, so
But
how-
if you look at if you look at the master plan that's been approved in, say, Phase 1 for Woodmont, you're talking about buildings that are 15,000 square feet, 20,000. You're not talking large, big box buildings because it's supposed to be that downtown Main Street feel. And that was the design of it. So the buildings that we're talking about that would qualify under this are not what's at Pettingill Road.
Right.
It's more in the line of what is already there, which is that mixed-use 4-story building and the brewery, right?
So barring a dental or medical facility with high value and stuff, what realistically are we talking a value taxable that building would go in as?
Well, I would agree with what Ted said, that I do think based on the cost of construction today, that these values are really low. I would almost think that most of the projects are going to qualify under the Tier 1 because it's not that hard to get $5 million of assessed value today.
Especially in a building and stuff, but I mean, if you're looking at limit-wise, if, say, the biggest $20 million is what we're looking at and stuff, because if we're looking at someone that can put in a building that's gonna be anywhere from $1 to $2 to $500,000, you might wanna think about putting a cap on how much tax credit you wanna give them before somebody walks up and puts a half a billion dollar building in, and the taxpayers are gonna come up with $250,000 of tax increases that they gotta pick up for that first year, in a rough manner of speaking, based on a discount of 50% of what they would be revamping or something. So that's why I'm trying to figure out what is the maximum capability that could be put in there for what the maximum tax offset that we'd be giving them. And if they could put a building that expensive for that much of a tax incentive, maybe you need to think about putting a limit on how high can they go. We'll give them a tax credit, 50% up to, I don't know, 5 million, 7 million, you know, based on what the planning board and stuff is allowed to let them build there.
So basically a tax credit on a partial, or tax exemption on a partial assessment.
I think it's looking for some sort of sliding scale.
Yeah, you know, and keep them, and just, Tim, to clarify one thing, the taxpayers wouldn't be making up for anything, right? Again, it's not dissimilar from the TIF district, where we're reimbursing them for a number of years until the reimbursement is paid off. It's just, it's deferring the tax revenue. Now, the flip side of that is, I mean, let's just get it out there. If Woodmont were going gangbusters right now, we wouldn't be in here with this. We're only in here with this because, as Mr. Breslin pointed out, it's been since 2013. And if I were to tell you the top 10 questions that I get asked, in that top 10 would be, what is going on with Woodmont? Because people want to know, why haven't they seen more development than what they thought was going to be there? I will tell you this too. Woodmont didn't ask for this, but this was something the staff and I discussed as an incentive program to try to spur commercial development there, so that they can use it as a tool, that the town can use it as a tool to try to bring more commercial development into a place where it's been zoned for commercial development. And so while it's easy to say, it's easy to sit back and say, well, you know, we're deferring tax revenue because of this program. How I look at it is the same way I looked at Pentonville, because there was always the questions there too. Why hasn't Pentonville Road been built? And then we did the TIF district, and suddenly everything sprang up. What I don't want to see is us sitting here in 2030 going, wow, I thought it'd be more than a brewery at Woodmont, you know? We're trying to spur development into this area, and this is a tool to do it, and hopefully now it'll come in quicker than it would have otherwise.
I'm just curious if we shouldn't have some type of a limit. is what I'm-
Sure.
Oh, yeah, go right ahead.
Just two quick questions, Kevin. What would the shelf life of this be? Like a TIF ends, right? We
Yep.
put it on for so long, and, you know, here it is if you want to take advantage. And so what would the shelf life be?
Sure.
And would there be a limit on how many of these? I mean, who knows? 5 people coming in. Is there going to be a limit to how many we're willing to do?
So I can answer both questions. So in response to your first question, Councilor Paul, it's a 5-year program, and it automatically expires in 5 years unless the council rescinds it sooner.
No, I understand that part of it. I meant, how long would we be offering this? Like Kevin just said, if Woodmont is still barren in 30 years, is this still going to be available 30 years from now? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, how long?
Not without further action of the council.
The council would have to renew it after 5 years.
It's gone. The program's gone in 5
Okay,
years unless
so
the
every
council
5
renews it.
years, if nobody uses it, it has to get
Correct.
re-upped again.
Correct. And now,
Thank you.
in response to this, the second question, which is, can we put a limit on the number of exemptions that are available? I don't think so. I haven't looked at that, I haven't researched that, but to me, I have concerns that that would be unconstitutional, because we have an obligation to tax similarly situated entities similarly.
Jim?
Yeah. I think people have to realize that we have a tax deficit. You know, we lost we lost a good portion of our revenue from the power plant. And the only way that we can control the taxes is bring in revenue. And we have to be creative about it. You've got to spend money to make money, but you have to be wise about it. Now, I can tell you from on the commercial end of things, you're not going to see a mall built for quite a long time,
Maybe ever.
ever. I see the push for life science buildings. I see them Cambridge in itself, if you look at the entire area, Cambridge itself is booming with life science, booming with biotech. The hospitals are, Mass General has been under a renovation programs. That's pretty consistent. I see these people moving. They're moving, they're starting to move west towards the 495 belt. We do have some pharmaceutical manufacturers up in the state, but that's the type of business that you're going to see. That's the future. That's the next 10 or 15 years. If we don't act now, it takes for an architect from start to finish, it could take 3-4 years before anything happens. So we'll still not see anything for 3 or 4 years. So, you know, this isn't corporate welfare as far as I'm concerned. This is smart business. This is, if we don't attract them, someone else is going to attract them, and we lose. And we need to find ways of increasing our revenues. And heaven forbid, my tax bill went up. Trust me, I'm not happy with it. I understand it. But we need to get in front of this curve, or we're gonna miss it. I've seen it before. I worked and sold for a hotel conglomerate all over the country. And they haven't done a thing since COVID started. So it's tough. I mean, you're not gonna get a Four Seasons hotel up here. You may get a Marriott, you may get something a little bit underneath, something like that, but it's gonna take time. And if we don't try to promote it now, we're gonna miss the boat. And we're all gonna be sitting here going, what do we do now? And Ray, I get the whole thing about the water and the sewer. That's gotta come too, because we can't build all this stuff and we can't promote it if we don't have it. I get that. I get it. That's what I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Tacoma 6 Bancroft Road. Comment on be careful on putting a max limit, because last thing you want to do is lose a business who may go to another state or another location that could be, you know, economic viability for the town for the next 50 to 100 years, where, you know, it might be a case-by-case basis that you may want to look at that. And if it's something, you know, that, you know, may take up, you know, 100,000, 200,000 square feet in that one area, that could bring in 1,000 new employees that are all making, you know, $100,000 each, you know, but yeah, they're going to be spending $100 to $500 million. You may want to look at the situation where the long-term effects of those taxes, of having them here compared to saying, oh no, we don't want to give you anything. That could be something you may want to really look at better. And then secondly, if we do go ahead and pass this, I strongly suggest passing this around to all the commercial brokers in the region to make sure that it does get good press, so that it does get used, so that we can get the business here. Thank you.
Anyone else?
One more thing. I'm sorry. Kevin, besides Nashua, Derry, Manchester, Concord, I think even Portsmouth has it, who are other towns that are smaller, like a Derry, that have this?
There are smaller communities. I know Waterville Valley sticks out in my mind. There were some, this initially started in Coos County. When the state first came up with this tax incentive idea, it was to spur development in Coos County.
Okay.
And so there were some small communities, and they're all small communities up there, but there were some smaller communities that did take advantage of this incentive program. And then the state gradually has broadened its, use over the years. So I can't think of the other ones offhand, but there are considerably, what did someone say?
How about Berlin?
I don't know if Berlin's taken advantage of it or not.
I was trying to look it up, and I was just trying to see,
Yeah.
just to see, how it helped vitalize. But what I saw was more blighted, areas like we had mentioned earlier, redoing of the cities, Nashua, Manchester, they helped build up the more brownfield, blighted areas. I mean, I know there's grants and stuff for that, but this was to even
Well, and I think
enhance
that's where
that.
Derry primarily has been trying to take advantage
Downtown.
of it, is in more of their downtown blighted areas.
Yeah.
And
So I was
this-
just curious,
yeah.
that's all.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right, two things. Well, there's three things. One is, could you, gentlemen, work with Councilor Paul offline with regards to the advertising and her comments here this evening about it?
Yes.
Two is so what I heard here tonight is that we want more flexibility, want to look at the valuations. We're not saying yes, we're not saying no, but we want to get more triggers inside the tool. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. It's up to you. I can either continue it or you can invoke your privilege.
Are we going to continue it? Is that what you're saying for another meeting?
I'm going to ask the council if they want to continue it, or you can just invoke your privilege and we will.
I'm going to
Fine,
continue it.
Yep.
I'll tell you right now, Deb, I'll continue it.
Okay. I just think it should be. I think it needs a lot of work.
I'm fine with it. Well, that's
Okay.
why we have public hearings. It
Okay.
Doesn't mean we're going to pass something when we do it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to continue.
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. We're going to continue this to, let's see,
22nd.
are you going to have enough time to have this ready for the December 20th?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay, then we'll continue it to December 20th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. All right, let's try to get to the budget workshop, but let's knock out this revenue piece real quick. So I've got acceptance of a donation for $10,000 under RSA 31:95B, Part 3, relative to the acceptance of revenue for is this for $10,000?
It is.
For $10,000, and this is for adding inclusive and sensory playground equipment to the current town playground. So I'm covering this under public hearing. Is there any questions from the council? Is there any questions from the public regarding this donation? Yes?
Ryan Bucher, 42 Mantra Mill. I'm president of the Londonderry Police Association. It's actually for 5,200 donation to the sensory.
Okay,
program.
thank you for that. I appreciate that. I have 10,000 written down here. Are you sure you don't want to donate 10,000?
Take another vote and we'll see.
I mean, because we'll take it if you want. Anything else?
Hi, I'm Katie Keeley, 18 Mantermill. I've been working with Justin Campo and Arts Leadus regarding the playground to add adaptive equipment for the special needs kids in town
Sure.
to use the playground.
That's a great idea.
And I think the 10,000 we were discussing was, we already bought the swing with the harness, which was $1,000, which the community has raised. And the next piece of equipment was the Omni Spinner. And I brought the quote. I think Kevin also, did Justin give you the quotes that we received? I can leave these if
Okay.
not.
That's great. We're only going to accept the revenue tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yes, it's been donated by the community, and we just want to purchase the Omni Spinner to go into the playground for the spring.
Terrific.
Do you want
Excellent.
these?
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Accept a motion to accept the donation.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Thank you very much. Ryan, thank you for the police department. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for your efforts as well.
Okay, we're still in public hearing, budget hearing. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the fiscal '23 budget public hearing. So if you understand our fiscal budget year, this will start July 1st, 2022, and go through to June 30th, 2023. So we're looking at budgets that will complete 18 months out. Who's presenting the budget tonight?
I will do most of it, Mr. Chairman. So Justin Campo is feeling ill, and I told him to stay home. So
Good idea.
he's watching it on live stream, though. You have some,
Feels better.
as do I. You'll have some handouts in front of you that you should have in front of you. The most notable is the changes from the budget that was presented on November 22nd, just to bring everyone up to speed on where we are. There was mostly some personal adjustments that were made in the town manager's operating budget, the insurance budget, and the police department and public works. All in all, we're still about $3,300 below the default budget with the other changes that were made. It's roughly, as you mentioned earlier, John, about 0.5% above last year's operating budget. Justin and I, at the request of the council and the budget committee, did go back and scrutinize the utility numbers beyond the adjustments we had made. And I appreciate everyone's concern that it's budgeted appropriately. and your willingness to add money in if necessary, Justin and I believe that where it is right now is okay, and that we will be okay in that area. If something were to change between now and next year, we'd make the adjustment in next year's budget. But as far as, we looked at these numbers 6 ways to Sunday, and we just believe that we are okay with where they're budgeted right now. So the only other thing I would perhaps add is, again, the consideration of a separate, if we were to do a separate warrant article, it would be for the additional IT monies to aid us in the on the cybersecurity side. We did add monies, if you recall, back into the proposed operating budget that we had. The delta between the default and the operating was about $50,000 we added, about $20,000 for town hall, $30,000 for police. Police had initially requested, I believe, close to $100,000, if that's correct. And so what we would propose is, if you want to go in that direction, is using the $50,000 for town hall and doing a separate warrant article for $100,000 that would be used specifically for the police department. The only thing we need to get clarification on, and this is something I would look to Mike for, and I don't need an answer tonight, but there is the whole no means no if a warrant article fails. I would find it hard to believe that if such a warrant article failed, that we couldn't use any monies for IT cybersecurity for the police department. But nonetheless, municipal law is interesting. And so I would want to get clarification on that.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, the way this is going to work is I am going to go to the council to go through the budget. I'm going to go through the budget committee. For those of you who are watching or are seeing this for maybe one of the first times, is we operate under a SB2 bill, which has been happening since 2013, since the town changed the charter away from town meeting, which used to take place on a Saturday in March, to Senate Bill 2, which is a default budgeting system. What that basically means is that we take last year's budget, all of our contractual obligations, which is everything from our labor negotiations, from our collective bargaining agreements, from our insurance, and all of the other contractual pieces of our budget. And that moves forward as our default budget. So if we want to spend more than the default budget, we've got to put on two separate numbers on the ballot. Many times you'll see two separate numbers. One may be just under default or at default. The town has not put a number above default on the ballot since the adoption of this process in 2013. So we're going down the same path this year, is that we're not going to put a number on that says we want to spend $500,000 more than we could. We're going to, right now, we're $3,300 below default. So that's why we're only up 0.5%. So with that, let's take questions. Let's cover the budget and the cybersecurity piece. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, council, budget. This is first public hearing. Let's go through this week, or if you want, we'll wait and hear from the public. I'll give it to you guys as a choice.
I'd like to hear from the public.
You want to hear from the public?
Yep.
Public? Public? You guys okay with going to the public?
Yes,
Public?
Mr. Chair.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, here, this is a first public hearing on the budget for $36,355,450. Are there any questions from the public? Okay, seeing none, I'll go to the Budget Committee first. Budget Committee, questions? Yes, Jonathan.
Relating to the cybersecurity, trust me, I understand that the town and the school district and the library are three separate units of government. However, does it make any sense to collaborate and coordinate with, especially the schools department? I'm assuming there's only one big pipe coming in with information in it through the internet. Would we be spending extra doing it just by ourselves, and then they would have to spend more of the taxpayers' money to do it by themselves? I'm not an IT guy, I just put it out there as maybe an opportunity to do it more economically if we do it together.
I always think it's a good idea to try, even though the budget is, it's one pair of pants, two pockets, right? I always think it's a good idea to try to figure that out. And the chief, both the chief and the deputy chief are here, they can correct me if I'm going down the wrong path here. My understanding of the level of cybersecurity that they would be looking for is far different than what the town and the school would be looking for. Is that, can you help us understand that?
Yes, Bill Hart, I'm the police chief here in Londonderry, and the short answer is yes. We are looking to dramatically enhance our security efforts since this is a concern that many police departments and municipalities have faced. But there's also a second part, and that is the information that comes into a police department is oftentimes people's most private information, and certainly no one would want it printed on the front page of the Union Leader or on WMUR. And that's our main concern, is that we are a stable redoubt against attack, as happens so often throughout our country. So it's fundamentally different in kind, not in degree.
Answer your question, Jonathan? I'm not saying the town and the school can't work together, I'm just clarifying the police.
Understood the police need their own cybersecurity, different from probably what the schools and the town need.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, if the council wants to hear from me on the no means no question that the town manager just raised, the concern is if there's a supplemental budget for IT services and that warrant article fails, that creates limitations on the ability to spend additional money on IT. It does not mean that the police department would not be able, or the town would not be able to spend any money on IT. It just means that there is an argument that there should be no additional expenditures on IT over and above the line. There's no case law that directly addresses that question. It was discussed by Attorney Ramsdell and I in the context of utilities. And certainly, I don't think anybody would contend that if a supplemental utility budget failed on the warrant, that once you hit your utility line, you have to turn the heat off. But it's a little bit more difficult to take that position with respect to IT, and it would be our advice that if we did find ourselves in the position after a supplemental IT warrant article failed, where we needed to overspend that line, we need to have a hard conversation about that.
Okay. Anything else? Budget Committee? Yes, Tim.
I'm looking at the current IT projects that's listed on the handout we got, I guess, the last meeting for Londonderry Police Department. And one thing I didn't see is that it's not prioritized in any way. So I didn't know, was something they were wanting to do all at once? Or was this their whole list, but they're looking at some this year, some next year, some the following year? Is there like a priority on this? Because a lot of this I'm looking at thinking, a lot of these go together. 365 backups with Office 365 migration, with Exchange migration. That's realistically one big package, so you're not gonna really do one without the other two. So I'm just trying to figure out if you have like a breakdown of, or is this all one big thing you're looking at trying to do?
I believe that Kirby provided to both the council and the budget committee a breakdown in terms of each line.
Yeah, I got that.
No,
But-
I have a different one.
Oh, you could definitely have that. Okay.
I
I was just wanting to kind of see what the priorities were, because a lot of this stuff, for the security stuff, I would, when Kevin mentioned it, I was cringing when he said put it on a warrant article, just because of the failure stuff. And it's like, these aren't things that you can say, okay, we'll wait and we'll do it next year. I mean, especially if you're talking like an Exchange migration or something, and you're running on Exchange Server 2010 like you were, if you haven't upgraded yet. I've got the same thing in my company, and that thing is like not working. And with the upgrades and everything they're doing with TLS to 1.2, et cetera, so on, other encryption and security things, it's gonna be forced out of working whether you like it or not. Whether you upgrade or not, it's gonna one day start having all kinds of problems. especially the Office Web Access that I think you guys use too, with the internet security. So there are certain things that you can't wait. You're gonna get stuck if you try to do a warrant article and it fails. So that's why I was thinking that I would keep that off of a warrant article. If it's even gonna have that problem, you know, you don't wanna get stuck if it ends up costing more than what a warrant article limits it to or something.
Well, the good news is we got time to figure that out. We don't have to do a public hearing on warrant article yet.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to
Yes.
just briefly address, I agree with you. Our thought was not to phase in that $100,000. As you know, as somebody who works in this field, these are expensive projects. And it's not start here and wait a little while. It's do it right now. And then our hope is that some of these things are migrating to more lease-oriented annual subscription models rather than buy a product. We'll build that into the default. That's one. Two is, I agree with you. I'm concerned about the no means no. That's a bad plan because it seems to me that in terms of value to the taxpayer, that information needs to be, to use a phrase from 20 years ago, lockbox secure.
Yes.
Put it in the lockbox.
Oh, boy.
Jesus, are we going backwards?
Okay, so here's the question that faces the council, okay? We realize that we have to step up and do something on cybersecurity. Obviously, it looks like we need more clarification around how to handle that warrant article. Question comes down to the budget. I think it's 81% of the budget is personnel. So we have 200 employees. I think the schools have 700 or 800 employees. So if you're looking to reduce the budget in any manner, we'd be reducing the budget primarily by personnel. Now, the thing to keep in mind is since we've gone to this different form of government and everything, every time we've increased personnel, every time we've increased firefighters, every time we've increased public works, and every time we've increased police department, we've put it to the ballot. And we put it to the ballot by the approval of the voters. The voters said, yes, we want more services. As we continue to be an aging community with over 1,000 homes of 55 and older, our services are going to continue to have more strain and demand on them. So those, we're not looking to hire any more people. We're looking to maximize what we have. But if we are looking to reduce, those are the lines we're going to have to go after. Since this will not be the last public hearing, that is something to think about. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think, this is not going to be a popular statement, but I think that there are definitely some priorities, and not that I feel that salt is very important, but going up as an example on the salt for $20,000, that's probably something versus default that we could probably put towards the IT upgrades that need to be done. And there's 20,000, now we got to find another 80. So I'm just wondering if there's a way that we could just instruct the folks that are here and listening in the departments and the town manager to, at least for me as a counselor, I don't want to risk the 100,000. I want to put that in the budget and get it done. So I don't know if we can find it somewhere else. I've heard everything. I know that what you just said, but there's 20,000. That's not a person. I'm just
So
thinking out
let's see if I can rephrase what you're saying. Are you asking the staff to go back and find you $100,000?
Yep. No, I'm 80,000 because I already found 20.
Okay, good. It's good to know that you're making decisions for us.
We're just going to have slippery roads.
So,
right, Dave?
Hey, the state takes care of him.
Just want to ask the council
State
that,
takes
if
care
that's.
So
that makes sense.
so the question is for the next hearing, can you go back and see if you can find $100,000?
Yes.
To put toward this, yep.
Okay, so let's go back and take a look, and let's take a look and see what we have from a warrant article standpoint, if we need to go forward with a warrant article. Because we do need to address those pieces.
Yeah, and where, I can tell you right now where I'll be looking at with Justin is that I think, for those of you who've been on the budget committee for a while and obviously the town council, we budget health insurance, at 100% occupancy, right? But we don't always have that. You don't want to under budget health insurance though. But there's some room there in the health insurance line that we can probably change, some plans from family to from a family plan to a two-person plan and save money there. I'll just have to work with Justin on getting to a place where we feel comfortable budgeting it, so we're not going to be under budgeting health insurance, but perhaps yield enough of a delta to get to that number, Joe, without having to go on a warrant article.
Okay?
Thank you.
That's reasonable.
Anything else? We're in a public hearing, so yes, you can come on up. Sure, absolutely.
Bill Hamilton from 3 Carrier Street. Some of the comments I just heard kind of raised some concern that we're talking about a budget and approving a budget, but we also know of ways that we can potentially save more or find money to work within this budget. I worked with budgets for 30 years, surprisingly right about this amount. And when we look at a budget like this, and we say it's up 0.5%, I'm going to tell you with full certainty, you can find that 0.5% and more. And it seems to me as though the people who have come in here and have proposed this have given us what they want. I would like people to go back and tell us what they need. I have a line here that says fire and legal, but I don't have any of the details, so I can't really get into any of that. But I would almost guarantee you can find that 0.5% and probably 5%. I would throw that out as a challenge to the board and to all of the people who are working this budget to do that.
So for clarification purpose, sir, we're not approving anything.
Understood?
The voters approve it. So just so that we understand, we're not approving anything here tonight.
But you're proposing.
We're not even proposing yet. We have several more steps we have to go through.
Understood.
And what we do is we take these and we go through each step.
Yep.
Now, we've been having hearings and meetings since November 3rd. So we're going to continue to have them into January. So while I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, this is all part of the process.
Well, again, I'm laying the challenge out to the board and to the people who have proposed this to go back and find all of the little things that we can do with insurance and all of the other little things that probably every line on here has some in, and come back with a lower number. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So, anything further?
Carries up.
Yes, sir.
Ray Breslin, 3 Gary Drive. I understand this is kind of early. We're going to have more meetings and so forth. But in regards to the cybersecurity part, very important, is there not federal money available to cover that rather than the taxpayer paying for it?
I don't know. We have grant writers and we apply for grants for every dime we can get. We gave the number the last time that we have, I think we've achieved over $10 million in grants. So we go after every grant we possibly can. Whether there's one for this or not, I am unaware.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. This is extremely important. Cybersecurity, the police department, fire department, and more, the town. Certainly, we should look at that and see if there is specific federal money available to cover that rather than putting it on the taxpayer.
Right, and again, we have one of the most aggressive grant writing programs in the state. We've acquired over $10 million in grants.
And
So we look at them all the time, and I very much appreciate you asking about it.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would just remind the board as well and the Budget Committee that Over the last 8 years, the town has given back $11 million to the taxpayers. That $11 million comes from surplus funds. Where do those surplus funds come from? When you're budgeting, when we gross budget, so you budget for all positions and the different health insurance plans, and not everyone's budgeted at a family plan. It's only those open positions that we're unsure of what that person's going to take that are budgeted at a family. Everyone else is budgeted for what the previous year's plan they were there for. That's essentially where your surpluses come from. So if you were to not gross budget and only budget the open positions and only budget those plans that people are taking, it basically comes down to, do you want the surplus on the front end or the back end? Because we're not holding on to the surpluses. As I said, we've returned $11 million over 8 years back to the taxpayers.
And how much did we return this year?
We returned $1 million this year.
Yes.
I explained it to somebody once, where like what Kevin once said was, he said it's either on the front or the back. It is irresponsible for us to have a budget so down to the limit that if something happens and we go over it, that we're hogtied and we can't do it, then to have the extra, so in case a catastrophe happens, we have the money, and then at the end of the year, put it down to offset the budget for the next year. Because the last thing we need to do as a town is come up to where we hit our limit, and we can't finish out the last month because some catastrophe happened.
We only have one choice at that point.
Right,
We have to,
so-
we have to lay off and close.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, so is, we
Tip.
could find that 0.5%, you know, we could narrow it down more, but then we risk the possibility of hitting that limit. And better to have a limit that's higher than we need and give it back to offset next year than to hit that limit and get stuck.
And Tim, I would note too that the catastrophe did happen. We owe $7.5 million in abatements to Granite Ridge Power Plant, in addition to losing $180 million in valuation. The only reason we did not have to go to the taxpayers this year or next year for that $7.5 million is because of that surplus monies that we had at the end of the year from the budget.
Just real quick, on the valuation for that plant now, hasn't it changed because of the electric rates and everything that's increasing, or is?
Well, it significantly decreased because the natural gas market plunged. And they're a business, they have a commodity. Their commodity is natural gas, and they sell it to the energy market at auction.
Correct.
And it sells for significantly less today than it did 10 years ago.
Yeah, futures are high, though.
Futures
Right,
are
but the-
high,
but
which
the
is good
problem
news.
Is that they're contracted out to 2024.
Right.
Okay.
They buy 4 years in advance.
So, yeah, we tried that during the lawsuit. Didn't work too well. Anything else? Accept the motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. New business, order 2021-21, an order relative to the expenditure of maintenance trust funds for various projects. Hi, Dave.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the viewing public. My name is Dave Wally. I'm your Director of Public Works and Municipal Facilities. What I have here before you tonight is a order for the expendable of maintenance trust funds in regards to winter maintenance. This EMTF request is to allow for a drawdown of winter maintenance funds. The request is for $17,000, which is a little under 50% of the average amount spent over the previous 4 fiscal years from the Expendable Maintenance Trust Fund. Those numbers are available there to you on the right in the columns. This is being requested in order to prevent future requesting of withdrawals of funds after the expense has already occurred. This request will be used for plowing, salting, and shoveling, and any other winter maintenance items that may occur at various town buildings, such as the Town Hall, Library, Londonderry Police Department, the Access Center, Central Fire, and the Senior Center, which I apologize for the omission there. If the total amount of the winter maintenance does not total $17,000, this request will be void after June 30th, 2022. If the amount of the winter maintenance exceeds $17,000, there will be a secondary request for that amount that will be determined based on what the month and the funds that are utilizing fully. Invoices for the services paid for can be provided upon request and at the following council meeting. So in basic terms, as I understand the way that this happens, is as we have winter occurrences and whatnot, like we've already had a very small, minor one, a little salting operation. When I receive these invoices, I'll come before the board and ask you to pay what has already taken place. So it's kind of after the fact, if you will. I was speaking with the finance director, Mr. Campo, and we thought it would be more prudent to basically look at what we've spent. Granted, the last 4 years, 3 years definitively have been fairly modest winters, and so far, we've yet to see what Mother Nature can do in the winter months. So we felt as though it would be a little bit easier if we had, a portion of money so that as these bills and invoices come in, that we can go ahead and pay them. And if at any time you decide you want to see what they are, we have, we keep files and everything going in a spreadsheet and whatnot. If we reach the $17,000, it's kind of a break point, if you will. We'll see where we are at that point in time in the winter season, and either ask for another allocation, or perhaps we're even wrapping up, coming into the spring, and we can finalize the total amount. Any questions?
Is there any questions? Yes.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you. Thank you to you and Justin for doing this. I think it's great that you're actually, before spending the money, coming to the council and asking us if this is something we'd like to do, to find out, if there are other options. I sincerely want to say thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Yes.
yeah, I apologize, Counselor. I don't know that I'm completely wrong here, but I think, based on what you just said, that you're actually, before you spend it, I thought, the way it's worded, that you're taking the $17,000 out, putting it in a kitty, and then as bills come in, you pay it out of that money.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's exactly what we're doing, and basically because, for example, I have 2 invoices here. So if I would come before you and ask for $455, which one of them came in today from another vendor, and you said no, which I don't know that has ever happened, we're obligated to pay them. I mean, they did the work, they're under contract, we do have to pay them. And the way that it's structured here in Londonderry, for your municipal facilities, this payment comes out of your expendable maintenance trust fund. So I have to seek permission for that. I'd rather seek an allocation of money before we have the work done, but not ask for a large amount or a total amount.
So it's not
I think a halfway point is fair enough so that we can evaluate as the season progresses.
So it's not that, I think, you were thinking that it's already spent, but
Well, it
I
used
think
to be
this
that
is, I think this is kind of circumventing. I'm just, as far as my 2 cents here, I think this is circumventing the reason why we have this in place. So I'm not really for this, so that's just, I wanted to put that out there. If it was something like you said, we're basically closing our eyes to, and we trust, I mean, but there's a reason why this procedure's been in place for a while. It's to bring those items before we pay them and say, these are the items that we need to pay. Here's the money, and if you release it, then you go pay them. So it's not what you were thinking about, that it's paid first and then all of a sudden they come up here. I understand what he's saying, there's things that are done and need to be paid, but again, the reason why this was brought up, and we've been working on this, is so that we can see exactly where that money is going.
Well, I beg to disagree,
Yep.
and I've seen it, just for example, when we had to fix something, we didn't even know as a council that this thing needed maintenance. It had already gotten done, and then they would come in and say, here's the invoice, we had to fix this. This is just a little bit different, so,
Different subject. I think if
Yeah.
I can just interrupt you guys for a second.
Yep.
We don't have a budget workshop tonight, so if you guys want to go, you can go. It's up to you.
I think it would be beneficial for us to be here, Mr. Chair.
All right, I'm sorry. I just wanted to let them know that they could go.
Thank you.
Go ahead, you guys keep going.
no,
Apologize for that.
I just think it's prudent, so say we want that, something was broken and maybe we didn't want to fix it, we wanted to go a whole different route. Maybe we didn't want to put vinyl on it, we wanted to put brick on it. We should, as a council, have an option to say, you know what, this is broken, let's put something on it instead of what we talked about, and as opposed to it just getting done.
No, I agree with that, what you're saying, but that's not what this is doing. This is
But
just
if you
giving
read
them-
here, it says if it doesn't spend, it goes back. If it does go over, they come to us. You're gonna see every invoice. That's just on the snowplow and stuff.
So let me see if I understand this. I just want to, I've been listening, and I just want to see if I understand this. What you're asking to do is you're asking, what you're saying here is we spent $35,000 last year. I know it says average, but we spent $35,000 last year. You're saying, hey, give me half, okay? I'm going to manage it. You're no longer going to see the invoices and approve them here at the town council. That's what you're saying, right?
Essentially, what we're trying to do is be in concert, if you will, with the similar way that you do your roadway maintenance trust fund. So when you have your trust fund set up and you have your contracts in place to do your road work, if we buy gravel, we don't come before the board and then say, we need an allocation to pay for gravel out of this fund. We paid for hot top. We have all those contracts in place. We have all those line items. And essentially, that's exactly what we have here. We have our different vendors that we utilize under contract with the hourly rates, and when they submit bills, we'll pay them off that trust account and draw it down.
Yeah, and when you exceed $17,000, you're going to come back to us and ask us for another $17,000.
Or depending on where we are at that point.
Depending on where we're
Correct.
at. So we're not going to see the invoices unless we want to see the invoices.
Correct.
Well, John, as long as I've been on the board, usually in this case, those invoices are already paid, and we're already looking at paperwork, and we've already paid it. So,
correct.
It's
you know,
not-
I think what we have to do is we have to let him manage it
And I'm
and
not
give him the
saying,
17 grand.
I'm not recommending one way or the other, I'm just
Yeah,
getting
I understand.
clarification. So what they're saying is that Joe's plowing company is gonna come, and Joe is going to plow everything, and when they're done, finance is gonna cut him a check, but we don't even know that Joe exists. Joe could be Fred. We just don't know. No, not you, Fred, but a different Fred. But could be anybody else. So we will no longer see or be involved in that decision. That's what we're saying here. So
Well,
if you're comfortable with that, fine.
are you sure that's the way? I mean, we have to look at the vendors.
Can
It
I?
doesn't mean that,
That's not what I'm hearing.
Can I just,
I mean-
can I throw one thing into it?
Yeah.
So, of course, at any time, if you wanted to review the invoices, the vendors, whatever, you have the full capability to do that. The whole idea of doing this is the way this trust fund has been operating is we always do the work first, after it's done, and then come to you guys and go, okay, you need to approve this now, but the work's already been done. So whether, and as Dave said,
Understood, but we had visibility. Now we won't have the same level of visibility.
What does it matter? You already
Well,
did the work.
but you're
that's the
approving the
problem.
work
That's what it
before it's actually done.
I understand that. Just making sure everybody else understands.
So I just want to make sure, Jim?
But please.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you understand why I have a problem with this. It's, we're big into ordinances, we're big into laws, I'm big into policy in my company, and the essence or the reason why we have this process in place, we're kind of doing a workaround here. So to me, I would prefer to get rid of the process completely instead of kind of doing this workaround. If we're saying that this is what we want to do, I mean, you're cheating the process. I mean, the process was in place for a reason, and if we don't want that process, we should just abandon the process.
I don't think we're trying to abandon the process. It has always made me uncomfortable that we do work and come for approval for payment after the work is done on this fund. And we've actually talked about this in years past before Deb was even on the council. And the feeling always is that there's, if we have a snowstorm, obviously we don't have the ability to come and get the council's approval first to say, can we plow the walkway? It has to be done. But it's been always one of these things that it's like, we're essentially coming in and going, pay this. You really don't have an option not to pay it because the work was already done on it. What we're trying to do is get approval for payment prior to the work being done. As Councilor Farrell notes, you won't actually see the invoices and the vendors. So you would have to be comfortable with that unless you requested them afterwards.
Yeah, we talk about being clear and upfront, and this is, in my opinion, reversed. We're still going to pay it. I think that the public, especially in these hearings, likes to see what I mean, so many times have I had, in the 10 years that I've been doing this, so many times have I had questions about it. And again, nothing to do with personally about you or anything. It's just a matter of so many times we've had questions that have come up, people have rang up, you paid what for what? Yeah, and so we've talked about making sure that we have, 3 different quotes first. Sometimes it's a good reminder to do that, and sometimes other companies have been questioned as to why we're using this company versus that company. I think those are all things that really need to be out in the public, and this kind of changes it a little bit. So I as a council, I'm not ready, that's just my opinion, I'm not ready to change that right now, and that's just my opinion
So this
being
is
put
not
out
for
there.
all maintenance trusts, it's only for winter maintenance trust.
Well, and to the point, so we have contractors that plow our roads, and we don't come before that, that comes out of your operating budget. So we're not pulling all those invoices out, which we'd be happy to provide those as well. I just thought this was a little bit of a cumbersome process to have to, for example, if I was sitting here under the normal process, I'd be looking for $535 to pay 2 vendors.
So would you all be comfortable with trying this? We can always rescind it, but yet still having it come to us as an agenda item for this winter so we can have visibility to it.
I think that's a good happy medium. So Joe will still see the invoices and who's doing it and the RFPs and,
I mean, it's
except that he doesn't have to come every time to ask to pay a bill
Right.
When it's already been paid.
that's already been paid.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we can work through that for this winter and get everybody comfortable with the process.
And I think, Joe, some of the maintenance that we have on the buildings and some of the electrical on AVAC, the same thing happens. They go and they do the work, they've already paid them, and we see the invoice. To me, a winter storm is a winter storm, ice is ice. Believe me, if they're not doing it, you get the phone calls that, guess what? The stairs are slippery. Believe me.
It's not about not doing it. but
Right,
yeah.
but to your
But the
point-
question that, when we go to take care of a building or something like that, it's always important to get 3 quotes, but it's important that we make sure that we're not, and it has nothing to do with them, that we're not value engineering something or we're doing something that costs us money in the long run. Those type of things, come to us, let us look at it, and you recommend it to us.
Yeah, but Jim, in my opinion, that doesn't change what has always happened. It's still going to work the same way. It's just that he's going to have a bunch of money in the front part of it.
But this is
Joe's
only
still
for
gonna
snow
get paid the same
plowing,
way.
Joe. This isn't for other stuff.
Yeah, I get you.
It's just for snow plowing because, tonight, who the hell knows? This rain could freeze over and I guess the guys get
I know
called
it's,
out. or whatever.
I know it's a service, but I also look at it as, it's no different than your electricity bills, your water bills, your sewer bills. We have a per rate per hour, we have vendors, and we have to pay the bills.
Well, it is, may I make a comment on that? It is because the process was built somehow before my time.
Sure.
And what you're saying is that, yeah, maybe you're exactly pointing something out that I was trying to talk about earlier. This process doesn't follow the rest of the way the town operates.
I can appreciate
So
that.
that's why I'm like, what is the essence and the reason? There's an attorney right over there, and there's another one there. They work on, what was this law meant to process? What was it meant to represent? So we're doing this to kind of get away from what this represented, in my opinion. That's all I'm saying. And to me, I'd rather just do away with it. That's
Joe,
my point.
could and I'm not trying to be argumentative at all, but what I would say is the process we have been following with only this trust fund is actually different than the process we have followed for all the other funds, where we always come in first and ask for permission for the money before it's expended. In this account, we've always asked for approval to pay it after the work's been done. And so what we're looking to do is get permission first to spend the funds before the work is actually done. So I would say we're actually trying to make the process with this in line with all of the other trust funds in the process we use.
And it could help you, right, in bidding. You could say, I only have this amount of money. In negotiating,
Well,
maybe.
yeah, perhaps. I mean, the winter's getting interesting these days.
Yes, I
Probably more
understand.
challenging these days than ever. But yeah, I mean, really, it was just, and that was the spirit of the motion here before you tonight, was just basically to streamline things. The contracts are already signed. They're public documents. If you wish to view them, you know what we're paying our contractors hourly. It just seemed foreign to me that someone that's plowing the roads doesn't follow this process. And again, perhaps I'm, a little ignorance on my part. I don't know the history and the nature as to how this was created in the beginning, but just to streamline a little bit, moving into this winter, I do plan on being here for all winter operations and what have you. So I just thought this was a little bit of a cumbersome step to come before you each and every event to try and get the bills paid.
Okay. What do you guys want to do?
I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Now, you talked about contracts, all right? Those contracts are public. We got 3 bids for snow removal for the winter.
Yep.
How's that handled?
Town manager signs them.
Town manager signs it. That should be in the public eye. Those 3 contracts should come to us, and we should be able to look at them and let the public see it too. That has nothing to do. Once that contract is signed and we've agreed to it openly and publicly, paying the bills is, I don't see where the problem is, because we've already signed the contract. We already know who the vendors are,
Right.
you know?
Okay.
Anyway,
What do you want to do?
I think the happy medium would be to bring those and see how it works for a little bit. I mean, I would feel more comfortable to say, here's your 17,000 and do it on a regular basis. Here's the 17,000. Here are the invoices. See, I don't see it as any different. Like you just said, it's 6 and 1/2, the other's in the other. I mean, you're getting the money in advance, but you're still bringing the bills. So, I mean. if
Not
that's what
not every event. I guess what my point is, when we're reaching that $17,000 threshold, you'll be provided the spreadsheet of all the invoices and the payments, all the dates all the way along. So you can itemize and see how everything was spent to that point in time. That might be in mid-February, that might be in early March. At that point, I'll make a recommendation as to whether, do I think I need just another $5,000 to get us into spring? We'll see how the whole winter's been going overall, or perhaps we wait until we receive our last bill and then we come in for the total and
It's
close it out.
17,000 for 6 months or so?
That's only just for half of what we typically spend in a winter. So there's definitively be before winter's out.
Okay.
So I'm looking for a motion. I can't make it, so someone has to make a motion.
I don't really know how to make a motion, but
All right, so I'll make it easy for you. I'll accept the motion to approve Order 2021-21.
I accept the motion, or second the motion, or?
You can say
So moved. I so moved the motion.
second,
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
aye.
Yeah, nay?
Opposed?
Nay. Chair votes affirmative, motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, so I already did Resolution 2021-26. We already accepted the revenue, right? I already signed it.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of clarification, the finance director texted me, and there was some talk about a $6,200 number, I think.
Yeah, I've got it as 11,000 and something, right?
That's correct. Your number is correct, Mr. Chairman. This is, since we have the budget committee here, this is kind of similar to a gross basis budgeting question. And it's just collecting all the sources of revenue that we have and accepting them for a purpose, for an appropriation. And
So do you want me to run this resolution in public?
This resolution, Mr. Chairman, is ready for approval.
All right, so everyone, Resolution 2021-26, we're accepting, this is for the,
Unanticipated, yeah.
for the playground. And let me just get the number. It's 11,000.
So it should be up to $12,000.
I have the resolution here, bear with me. Total acceptance is for $12,000. Can I have a motion to accept?
So moved?
Second,
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Revenue is accepted. DOT, Exit 4, land takings.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman. Mike Malaguti, Assistant Town Solicitor. I'm here on an informal basis to advise the council about two land takings that the Department of Transportation has initiated. This is for two parcels of land immediately to the side of Route 93, and it's for purposes of, at least as far as one of the parcels is concerned, constructing the sound wall that you all have heard about. And those parcels are identified as 51 rear trolley car. It's 0.55 acres of land, plus a 725 square foot drainage easement that the department wants to take. And that is out of a total almost 10-acre parcel. They value the 0.55 acres to be taken at a grand total of $718.74. They value the easement at $16.31. This parcel, in consultation with the planning department, was determined to be mostly wet. It's a substandard lot, and it's on a Class 6 road. The other parcel that the department needs is at 4 trolley car, and it's 0.04 acres of land, plus what's referred to as an uneconomic remnant. So when part of the parcel is taken, they determine that the remainder of the parcel has no economic value. The parcel in total is 0.2 acres, and as I said, they're looking to take 0.04. They're offering $500 for the parcel to be for the portion of the parcel that's to be taken. They're offering $400 for the remnant. This parcel is even more problematic. It's landlocked, it's not buildable, and the appraiser determined that it has no highest and best use. I'm here asking for a consensus to proceed with a cooperative process with the Department of Transportation. The reason being that this will be one thing that the town can do to try to get those folks on trolley car their sound barrier as soon as possible. There's a process here under the statute, and the process entails review and recommendation by the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, and then 2 public hearings and a council vote at the 3rd public hearing. I don't need a vote tonight, I'm just looking for consensus.
So I have a 30-page appraisal here for this.
Want to be transparent.
For $1,100. I'm sure the appraisal costs more than that.
I think it probably did.
Questions?
Jim?
Yes, please.
So just in staying with what we usually worry about in this situation, have we communicated to the abutters and people that could possibly be affected by this? I understand the small size, I understand the dollars, but I just don't want to have somebody come back to us and say, oh my God, this is what you did to me, and I wasn't communicated to, so.
I think it's an excellent suggestion. I have not communicated with them at this point in the
Okay.
process, but I will do so.
Okay, great.
Anyone else? So Mr. Malaguti is looking to proceed forward with this.
Agreed?
Yeah, with the communication, yep, agreed.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And very interesting appraisal.
It's very detailed.
Isn't that something?
It's amazing. All right, so we completed the budget workshop piece. I'm looking for approval of the minutes for November 22nd as presented in our packet.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative, minutes are approved. So we've got a couple of appointments and reappointments tonight. So we've got an interview for Ted Combs for Planning Board. Ted, come on up. So I'm sure everybody's already telling me I'm cutting into the football game, so, now it's up to you to see how much longer we'll be cutting into the football game.
In case you're wondering, they're up 8-0.
Well, that's good to know.
Thank you, awesome.
So, Ted's looking for a position on the planning board. He has, we know Ted from the town council, and he has served on the planning board before. Give you the same opportunities we give everybody else. Ted, you know the process since you served up here. Would you like to make an opening statement?
Certainly. Looking to put forth my experience in construction, reading plans. I have about 10 years in project management and construction, so I have extensive knowledge of reading plans, site work plans, and certainly knowing, how to ask the right questions when it comes to construction in regards to the town.
Great. Jim?
I'm all set.
No, listen, know Ted and have served with him, so I don't have any questions. Joe?
Now, I was going to ask for, how do you think you can actually, what you can bring to the planning board and what your experience levels are, but you answered that, and the fact that you were sat on the planning board before is good with me.
So that leaves me with the, do you have any conflict of interest?
I don't know of any right now. If I did, I would recuse myself from the situation. If I knew of a project and what may be coming, I would step down from whatever situation may be coming.
Thank you.
Okay, Ted? We'll probably vote tonight, so you have any other questions for us?
I guess when would be the next meeting on that, if I would be appointed?
So once you're
Would it be
sworn in.
January?
It depends on when you get sworn in.
Yeah.
I believe it's an alternate's position. I believe the next, they meet the first 2 Wednesdays, so my
January.
guess is probably January.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. I have David Heffy? Hevy? Let's take on my best guess. Conservation Commission. Hi, David, how are you?
Pretty good, how you doing?
Can we just have your address for the records?
Sure, 19 Sugar Plum Lane.
Thank you, sir. I understand you're here for Conservation Commission tonight. You've been recommended by the committee. The chairperson is here. You can see a little bit about how we do this. I offer people an opening statement, and then we'll just ask some questions.
Great, well, I think in 2018, when I first moved here, one of the first things I looked for was a place to run around the woods. And I found the Musquash Reservation. I was delighted, but I was even more impressed that the town had actually allocated the space and protected that area for our use. From a professional perspective, I work for the state of New Hampshire. I'm the Assistant Director of Data Center Operations for the Executive Branch, and one of those is Department of Environmental Services. In fact, the database administrator.
Oh, we want to talk to you.
About cyber?
Oh,
I can
yeah,
talk-
we love DES. We'll explain why later.
I can talk to my database administrator who manages all the data for those guys. I was also privileged to be a member of the class of 2021 for Leadership Londonderry. It was a great experience. I had the opportunity to visit with a number of councils and listen to what everyone had to say, but I had the most connection with the Conservation Commission. I really enjoy outdoor spaces. I think it's something that's very important to the town, and I'm looking to help preserve that. So I would like to thank you for your consideration.
Jim?
I'm ready to vote.
Yeah. Skills.
We got questions about DES.
Sounds like we definitely have the skill set to bring to the Conservation Commission, so I won't ask that question.
I have to ask the conflict, but I don't see any. Only enhancement, but yeah. Do you see any conflict of interest?
As stated before the previous gentleman, I would absolutely recuse myself if that was the case.
Thank you.
Okay, David. I don't have any questions. I'm sure at some point you've probably read about all of our water issues here in town. Sadly, I know the commissioner really never did want to know everybody in DES, but I do. So we think you'd probably, it sounds like people think you would probably enhance the Conservation Commission, so we'll vote here tonight, and once you're, if you do get an affirmative vote, you get sworn in by the town clerk.
Great.
Thank you for stepping up.
Can I make just a quick comment? Just want to thank David. You know, one of the things we impress upon the Leadership Londonderry classes is that we want you to step up and serve on boards and commissions, and that was part of the purpose. And so I think it's great that we have one of our graduates that's looking to do just that. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Question, alternate or full member? Full member?
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
So thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you.
All right, so one thing is that we are still looking to fulfill other board positions. We're always looking for more volunteers. Volunteerism has drifted over the last several years. That was the purpose of Leadership Londonderry. So with that, I will entertain motions for the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission in whatever order you want to take them.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So in the past, and I don't have the name with me right now, please forgive me, but we have actually interviewed other folks, and we've said that we'd have other other interviews in other town council meetings. So Do we have a list of that? I mean, if Kirby could speak, or Kevin, you could speak. Do we have a list of those people that we have already interviewed? And is there anybody, I guess my most important question, is there anybody that we have interviewed that wanted to be on the Planning Board and Conservation Commission, just because we've already interviewed them?
So I have a text from Kirby.
Thank you.
So what we have for the, we did interview Mr. Dunn and Ted, and Mr. Heffley is the only person who we've interviewed for commission and is being recommended by the Conservation Commission to a full-time position, and they don't have any other applicants to the best of my knowledge.
Correct. And to speak to Joe's point, like people who have applied in the last year or two, is that what you're referring to, Joe? People who have applied in the past. I've reached out to a certain amount of people. A lot of people are still uncomfortable because of COVID. So there's a lot of people who have stepped forward in the past who might not step forward again.
I just want to make sure that we don't forget the people that we've already,
Understood.
Yep.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
of course.
Kirby, are these two the only two people that applied for the planning board? Because I know someone who applied right when it came out, and I didn't see them interview.
Those are the only two I've received.
Okay.
So if you want to follow up with that other person, you can. There will be other positions open, because next meeting, you guys are gonna go through all the appointments that need to be done before the end of the year. So
Okay.
these are just other random appointments that have been going on.
Yeah, no, it was Martha Smith. She said she applied when she first heard about it. And she contacted me twice, and I told her, I said, I haven't seen it, so I told her to contact you.
Yeah, I sent her a town date form, I haven't received it back yet. So when I receive it back, she's more than welcome to interview.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. What do you want to do?
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that based on Mr. Combs' experience, that we vote him into the planning board as an alternate member.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes affirmative. So Ted, see the clerk. Any other motions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Based on David Heffy's, Heffy's experience. Huh?
You made the same mistake.
I know I did. Sorry about that. I apologize.
These are DES.
I nominate him for a full member on the Conservation Commission.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes affirmative. Please see the town clerk to be sworn.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay, liaison reports. Anything new? Anybody? Anything new? Town manager report.
Nothing going on.
Nothing new?
Nothing going on.
Nothing going on?
Nothing going on.
Oh, boy.
Did you get that, John?
I heard that.
Okay.
I'm not even saying anything.
Okay.
Assistant town manager report.
I have nothing to report this evening.
Nothing there either.
Well, she said she has nothing to report this evening, not that she has nothing going on.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next meeting will be December 20th at 7 PM. Accept the motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned. Thank
Heard
you.
anyone say nay?